Welcome to everybody to 3 Count Commentaries. I am MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to talk about NXT 2300 from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, November the 6th. The ECW NXT crossover you did not ask for, don't know what to expect, and mixed bag, let's say. They didn't do too much. But it was certainly a mixed bag, and you certainly remember the good old days of ECW being a long time ago. I did like the classic intro with the theme mixed in between the NXT, ECW stuff. Oh man, the best thing about this was how all the Wrestle Purist guys and the Voices of Wrestling guys, oh my God, they turned themselves into an absolute knot over the NXT ECW mixture. They hate it so much. That was more entertaining than the video itself. The video itself felt like somebody, a super fan put it together. But their anger at it was cartoonish. It was absolutely cartoonish. So the guy who does reviews for Voices of Wrestling, I got to do this. Usually I don't interrupt my review for other people's thoughts, but this was absolutely gorgeous. I had to talk about this. So this is the guy who does reviews of WWE for Voices of Wrestling. He says, quote, "There are no two big league pro wrestling products in the history of the business that are more diametrically opposed than ECW and NXT. Just gross. Do you remember how hard the original ECW mocked WCW? The old Steve Austin Monday Night Quill bits? Imagine how hard they would rip NXT. And rightfully so. NXT is the shits." oh, really? Maybe NXT outliving ECW is a question. Oh, everybody talks about how much AEW is going to outlive WCW. The humorous thing, there's already more episodes of NXT than there has ever been episodes of ECW television. Right now, there are more episodes of NXT that have been produced than more episodes of ECW television. And it's been around longer. How about that? Now, I do agree that these two things are not the same thing. I do agree that these two things, ECW was all about the grit and the grime and, guys being out of shape and having no talent. And those guys almost never got fired because they were beloved, because they were local guys most of the time by the audience. Guys like Hack Myers and 911, guys who have no talent whatsoever. Even guys who have moderate amounts of talent but get pushed because, well, everybody else sucks. Like, Just Incredible. Or absolute sawed-off bums like Rhino. And what's that other guy? You know who I'm talking about. Not just Rhino. He's a bum too, but that other guy. The one with the gold hair. He was in MLW. He coaches in NXT. Corino. Yeah, he's a bum too. There's so many bums. Like, everybody thinks that all ECW was like Rob Van Dam and Bam Bam Bigelow and shit. No, ECW was 90% motherfuckers like Hack Myers. Like, that's really what it was. If you go back and watch old ECW, a lot of it are guys that Ty Gordon could afford, who were local guys, who came in, they had very little athletic ability, they got beat up, they took a lot of bumps, and the crowd liked them because of that. Then you'll get a Eddie Guerrero or a Dean Malenko who would come through, a Rey Mysterio or a Psychosis. Just kind of like, NXT had its time where you had Malachi Black and Adam Cole and, Drew McIntyre and Andrade, where you occasionally have, but NXT is mostly for the Hanks and Tanks, those guys, the Bull Dempseys, guys who might not make it anywhere in the long run. Most of the ECW talent were not going to make it outside of ECW, unless you thought Axel Rotten was going to be a huge star, which nobody did. But I agree that these two things should not be thoroughly mixed together. I will agree with him on that. But I would just say NXT is a very fun show. ECW was a fun show too, even though a lot of the guys were the shits. It was a fun product. I mean, it was different for its time. It's kind of cliche now because everybody does it, but at the time it was cutting edge. So, but ECW, I mean, I should say NXT at one point was cutting edge too. It was just a higher produced product, but it was for the same audience, which is a more underground, hardcore wrestling centered audience. Now, the difference being, of course, is that there was not going to be any glass, barbed wire, or fire in WWE, and there was not going to be any Terry Funk in NXT. That just was not going to happen. Well, they had that sort of thing in ECW. Let's get into the first match on the show. Jada Parker fine ass defeats Lola Vice fine ass in a hardcore match that I absolutely hated. I hated this match. And it wasn't because the girls didn't work hard. I'll tell you exactly when I hated the match. When you get hit in the face with a brick and the brick just dissolves into salt, like powder, that's not a real brick. Now, of course it's not going to be a real brick, Mongo. Then don't use a brick. Don't do this. It looks so... For starters, the brick looked like a sponge laying in the ring. And then she grabbed it. Now, they told a decent story with it, as Lola Vice had her in a chokehold. And this was like the second or third time that Jada Parker was trapped in this chokehold. She was trying to get out of it. And she worked her way to the brick. And the crazy thing is, Lola Vice sees the brick coming. Hit her right in the face with the brick. The brick just poof. I'm just like, what? Come on, man. And then you want to know even the most wickedest part of it? That wasn't the finish. You got hit in the face with a brick, even though it was a powdered brick. It was made of something. That wasn't the finish. The finish was still Jada Parker running across the ring and hitting her in the face with her thighs. You hit the girl in the face with a brick. That wasn't the finish? You mean to tell me them soft-ass thighs coming across her face was more of a devastating move than getting hit in the face with a brick? Whoever put this together was overthinking the NXT ECW stuff. You were most certainly overthinking it. This was trash. And I like both of these girls. But the brick stuff, I can't overlook it. That's trash. We got to move on. Kalani Jordan had a moment with Rob Van Dam where they're both stretching. And Rob Van Dam gave her the genius idea to pin Fallon Henley in her match tonight. That didn't happen, though. The second match on the show, Javon Evans versus Wes Lee. The match was pretty damn good. I'm not a fan of them doing the kung fu fight scenes. I hate it so much. I wish Javon Evans would stop doing it. I wish Wes Lee would stop doing it. Every single match of these guys who are so similar, they do the same thing. I'm a kick, you duck. I'm a flip, you flip. You know, it's like, oh my God, no more of this. I also don't need to see Javon Evans do that top rope cutter anymore. Like, I don't really need that. It's just excessive. It's just an excessive move. But otherwise, I kind of had fun with this. You know, the top rope Hurricanrana spot that I believe it was probably Wes Lee botched it. But it went off and nobody died. But Wes Lee just had back surgery. Maybe he should rethink that spot. I forgot to mention that Wes Lee actually attacked Rob Van Dam earlier after Rob Van Dam was talking to Kalani Jordan. So that led to Rob Van Dam coming out and distracting him so that Javon Evans could do the 5-star from afar. And he literally did a 5-star frog splash from one side of the ring to the other. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't the smoothest 5-star frog splash in the world. But he did it. And it was kind of impressive. I didn't hate this. I thought this was pretty good. It was okay. I wish that we could have just not done the kung fu fight scene at the beginning, which obviously they're going to do because Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam, they were kind of trying to say like that's what these two guys are. I want them to have a more traditional match though, and I'm also tired of the interference. You know, I said it last week. The amount of people who walk down the ramp in the middle of a match is unnecessary in NXT. It's just ridiculous. It's a WWE problem in general, with just the amount of people who just waltz to the ring in the middle of a match. It's like, come on, we might need to put bouncers at the rampway sometimes to keep people from just waltzing to the fucking ring. At least come through the crowd or something. Guys are just do. Hey, this ain't the bathroom. This is like, come on, man. Get the hell out of here. So, Tony Mamaluke, I can't believe that guy was there. And Nunzio confronted Tony DAngelo about the disrespect of not getting a phone call from him. So Tony Mamaluke, for some way, got Adrienne Rizzo a match with Nikita Lyons, who apparently her throat chakra is open. I saw that tweet, boy. Whew, I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep after that. I might not get no sleep after that. She tweeted out, my throat chakra is open. And I've been thinking about it ever since. I'm trying to keep my wig on, fellas. You can't do stuff like, you can't just tweet shit like that out. Everybody's gonna like, wait a second, what do you mean? What does that mean? Like I studied chakras, I but out of nowhere your throat chakra is just wide open, huh? Is it? Anyway, and Nunzio says that Tony DAngelo is gonna have to pay a tax, and the tax is that he had to fight him tonight. Well, they had the match, and it wasn't much of a match. Tony DAngelo pretty much dominated Nunzio. He didn't really take too many bumps either. He beat him with a big spine buster. I mean, Nunzio was just... As much as we make fun of Adam Cole, he ain't got shit on Nunzio, dog. He never did. I forgot how utterly, pathetically scrawny Nunzio is. I mean, just look at his arms. He is not lean. Look at his arms. He looks like a scarecrow. I cannot believe a man that skinny survived over 20 years in the wrestling business. God bless him. God bless Nunzio. He hugged Tony DAngelo after the match. They talked about being family. Hopefully these guys stick around. I wanted something a little bit more. I'm kind of disappointed in what they did here. I expected something a little bit more, but it was okay. You know, I would have expected it to have a real match, but Nunzio's, I don't know, he got to be like in his 50s at this point. Maybe even in, near his 60s. He can't have a real match. So, this was fine. And Nunzio just being in front of that crowd again was great for the crowd. I hated that they used that incredibly generic FBI music. It's like, why don't, I guess they can't use the old music that they had, but, that music they had was so generic, and it was disgusting. It was terrible. And they didn't do anything for Tracy Smothers either, because I remember he was a part of the FBI for a little while. You would have thought they did something in memory of him, but I don't remember them doing anything for him. All right, so Ava announced the deadline matches, which means the Iron Survivor challenges are coming back. Yay. And then out of nowhere, Mr. Stone decides he's going to diss Philly by saying that New York and Boston are harder core fans than Philly. And he starts talking about how Philly is terrible and Philly is trash, and the lights go out. And when the lights come back on, oh my God. When the lights came back on, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm not surprised. I'm really not, but Rhino, Spear, Robert Stone, everybody. I thought it was going to be Sandman. I would have settled for New Jack's corpse. I'd have settled for anything other than Rhino. I mean, Raven. It had to be Rhino. Just had to. Tommy Dreamer. Just had to be fucking Rhino. God, what a bum. Moving on. Ethan Page and Ridge Holland defeated Trick Williams and Bubba Ray Dudley. Ridge Holland pinned Trick Williams almost through my TV. Not because I hate Ridge Holland, but because I hate Bubba Dudley. I hate this guy. He sucks. I didn't care about this match at all. I didn't really take any notes on it. I watched it, but I cringed through my way through it. I don't like Ethan Page either. So I'm like, oh my God. Ridge Holland, I'm on the fence. I love me some Trick Williams. Clearly Ridge pinned Trick, and he didn't pin him flat in the middle of the ring and embarrass him. It was kind of like a quick, surprise roll up. Well, now Ridge can say that he beat Trick Williams, and put him in position for a title match. That was the point of this thing. But I could have done without Bubba Dudley. I know that it was great for the crowd. Again, ECW, yay. I'm just kind of like, this dude's old. He's old as shit. They did an after-match spot where Devon came out with a table, and Bubba and Devon put Ethan Page through a table. So there's that. Next, Carmen Petrovic and Ashani D. Adonis, they had a segment where Carmen Petrovic was upset that Ashani D. Adonis brought his girl to ringside, and she was very disappointed. She was very upset. So Adonisly, he wasn't feeling Carmen Petrovic anyway. He don't think they got things going. They don't got no mojo. They don't got no motion. So then he says, I know last week was your birthday. Happy belated birthday. And he turns around and walks away. So Carmen Petrovic was like, I was just costing you the match because you cost me a match. Wait a minute. You knew last week was my birthday? I was like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. She noticing things. He's noticing things. Okay. This is hilarious. Carmen Petrovic is finally doing something on TV. And this is it. So, they threatened me with a Shawn Spears, Tony DAngelo match, and I will do anything to stop that from happening. I will fly to Florida myself and jump in between these two people to stop this match from happening. I don't want to see Shawn Spears anywhere near Tony DAngelo. You talk about people who need to be thrown off a bridge. Shawn Spears needs to be thrown off a bridge. Tony DAngelo likes throwing people off bridges. Hey, Shawn Spears needs to be thrown off a bridge. He's basically got it tattooed on his back. Throw me off a fucking bridge. I suck. William Regal, he looked at Lexis King and said he was very proud of him and that he is not his father's son. And says one day he's gonna make it. So he turns to Charlie Dempsey. And then he says that he's very proud of Lexis King. Lexis King is not his father's son. He says, well, Charlie, are you your father's son? And Dempsey says, time will tell. So then William Regal suggests Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne get involved in the tag team division because it's not just Dempsey's group, it's their group too, which is important. I like that. A lot of people have been very upset about Tavion Heights not being used more, as if we care about what happened in Japan, but he's a very good talent. I would say use him more. You should probably use him as a singles act more than anything, but tag teams too, because Miles Bourne is not bad. Again, I'm left with, are they telling us that William Regal is his dad, or are they alluding to it and not telling us? Because it seems like they told us before, and now they're trying to act like it's vague. I'm not sure what they're doing with Dempsey and Regal here, but they're slow rolling it, which is fine. Dempsey got all the time in the world. If he was to get called up to Raw or SmackDown, he'd probably just be one of the many people not being used on TV. Speaking of not being used, before we get into the main event, where the hell is Obafemi? Where did that man go? I know people told me, oh, Obafemi's leaving. He better not be leaving. He better not go nowhere. Bring your ass back to NXT, sir. We need you back here, sir. Also, it was announced that NXT is bringing in some guy from Pro Wrestling Noah named Yoshiki. I have no idea who that guy is. I don't know who he is. So I guess we'll see. So they're bringing that guy in. I don't know what he's going to do, but I guess we'll see. There was scenes with guys like Eddie Thorpe and stuff, and nobody cares about these people. So the main event, 10-woman tag, Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, Fallon Henley, JC Jane, Jasmine Nix versus Zarya, Julia, Kalani Jordan, Stephanie Vaquer, and Jordan Grace. This was actually not bad. I don't know if I would have made it the main event. I probably would have made it the first match on the show, but they love pushing the girls for the main event. This is one of those things where Shawn and Triple H are looking too much at the internet as they put over the girls. It's like, I'm not sure if everybody likes the girls this much that they should be in the main event every week or every other week or something like that. This is like the 5th main event between these girls. Like, enough's enough. But they insist on doing this. Roxanne Perez takes another pinfall. She lost in the last match too. This time she gets pinned by Zarya after a F5. Is the point of this to put Zarya in title contention? Because she already got pinned by Stephanie Vaquer, and now she getting pinned by Zarya. I would have imagined that you wouldn't do that, but they did do a segment earlier in the night where Stephanie Vaquer and Julia had a run-in with Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. So maybe the goal is to keep them as a tag team for a little while and move Zarya into the singles spot. I don't think that needs to happen. Look, I'm also kind of on the fence about Zarya's presentation because they introduced her as sort of like this world beater. Like she was going to be like the super powerhouse, and she hasn't been bad in that role, but she also comes across as painfully normal. And she hasn't been around long enough to be one of the girls in the locker room. Yeah, all that kind of shit, taking group pictures and stuff. She ain't been around that long, They're normalizing her character a little too much. She should be an aberration. Almost kind of like what Samoa Joe was in the early days of TNA. That's really how I kind of envisioned that she would be. That she would leave like like the girl Obafemi, kind of. But, okay. And then also they did nothing with the Kalani Jordan, Fallon Henley story, which I thought they were gonna do something with that here. They decided not to. They did have Zarya spear Jordan Grace by accident. So this might lead to something later on with the two of them. But now Roxanne Perez has lost twice to two different people. I'm not sure if she's gonna defend her title at Deadline. If so, is she going to defend against Zarya or Stephanie Vaquer? Because both of them have beaten her recently. That's an interesting equation, an interesting situation that we can discuss. I personally would probably not do Zarya yet, but whatever. Now, it seems like, I think, if I remember correctly from last year, that they're going to do the Iron Survivors. I think there's 5 people in the Iron Survivors match. Are they just going to use the 5 women that was in this match? Are they going to do qualifying matches next week? Are they just going to use the 5 women that was on this show here? Because there's not many more. My issue is that Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and Zarya all being introduced at the same time takes the shine off all the other ones. Like, we should still be basking in Julia. She just got there, and she's already been pushed aside. Stephanie Vaquer just got there. She's already been pushed aside. And then they brought Jordan Grace back, who she should matter too, and now she's, getting beat up in the middle of these matches. I don't know, man. I'm not one to question Chef Shawn, but I'm going to question his decision to bring all these women in at the same time and not spread them out. I get that, people want, more, but, less is more sometimes. Or you have 2 divisions, split that up and put one of these girls in another division. I don't know. It just seemed like it was sensible to me. NXT was okay. It wasn't the best show. It wasn't my favorite episode of NXT. Javon Evans and Wesley, an incredibly watchable match. I enjoyed it, even though I didn't really like all the the fake kicks and obvious cooperation. I couldn't stand none of that. Jada Parker is always fun. I wish they didn't do that brick shit. That brick stuff just took me completely out of it. The main event was fine. Nunzio and Tony DAngelo was disappointment. Dawn Marie looked great in this show. She looked great. Francine did as well. The women didn't seem to age as bad as the men did. I mean, Rhino is basically just human flesh in that same stinky ass singlet that he's been in for a really long time. So I know I kind of ran through without talking about news and notes, but I'm going to talk about it here. That Baron Corbin made a comment about being sent back to NXT. He basically talked about going back to NXT in order to fix things that was wrong with him. And basically saying that he got a new lease on life going to NXT. He wanted to change how he did things. They also discussed how much work he did with Carmelo Hayes. And Carmelo Hayes then, a couple of maybe hours later, agreed and talked about how, vital he was in assisting him. And I thought, man, that was really sad. That was truly sad. And there was another story about WWE sending people back to NXT right before they released them. And I thought that was a conspiracy theory. And they talked about, some people. I was like, well, because they didn't do it to Tegan Knox or Indy Hartwell or some of the other people who they ended up firing. It happened a couple of times. I know Ember Moon and Baron Corbin. There was a couple of times where, one final NXT run was in the cards to try to fix what was wrong with you. But I don't think that that's the first step in you being released. That's just kind of nonsense. Anyway, the NXT-ECW crossover show wasn't much of a crossover show. They probably could have did more with the ECW stuff. But then again, I also didn't want that much nostalgia because ECW nostalgia is some of the worst kinds of nostalgia. I mean, it was literally a product that existed from 1992 to 2000. So like literally 8 years. That's it. But it was beloved. And NXT did a decent tribute to it and brought out a couple of people we haven't seen in a while. Unlike, which I think we need to see less of Rhino. Also need to see less Bubba. But let me know what you guys thought of the show. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression. Regression, the best don't